It's a great pleasure to request Mr. Anand Ranganathan.
May I request you to not tinkle the bell just right now? Please give me 30 seconds. Good evening, everyone. What a real pleasure it is to be here at the Calcutta Debating Circle. For a scientist, CDC meant Center for Disease Control, which somehow seems quite appropriate. But I must thank the organizers as well as this enormous crowd. And also, last but not least, Dr. Sarkar, who I have to say has a very sardonic sense of humor in deciding the teams. I almost feel as if I've been abducted. RAJYA gundo mein phas gayi hai. You know, I tried to argue with him. I tried to bribe him with Louis Vuitton bags, but he said those have already been taken. Then I said, how about a couple of Ferragamo shoes? He said, those also are out of the market. Then I said, how about my pet Rottweiler? I can give that to you, Dada. Please do something. He said, no, that's out of the question as well. And finally, I said, I'll give you an annual maintenance contract of the money counting machines. That also did not work. So I'm sorry to say, Kunal Da is incorruptible. Did you offer electoral bond? By the virtue of him being incorruptible means he cannot join politics. So that's good news. Let me now begin. Journalism in India, ladies and gentlemen, was once a profession. It has now become a trade. It has no more moral function than the manufacture of soap. It does not regard itself as responsible advisor of the public, to give the news uncolored by any motive, to present a certain view of public policy which it believes to be for the good of the community, to correct and chastise without fear all those, no matter how high, who have chosen a wrong or a barren path, is not regarded by journalism in India its first or foremost duty. To accept a hero and worship him has become its principal duty. Under it, news gives place to sensation, reasoned opinion to unreasoning passion, appeal to the minds of responsible people, to appeal to the emotions of the irresponsible. Indian journalism is written by drum boys to glorify their heroes. Never, never has the interest of the country been sacrificed so senselessly for the propagation of hero worship. Now, I would want a show of hands out here. How many of you believe what I just said is true? Okay. Quite a lot of hands have gone up. Well, I must tell you that these were not my words, but rather verbatim, the words of Dr. Ambedkar on Indian journalism, spoken nearly a century ago. Nothing has changed in 100 years. You believe what you see, but unfortunately what you see is written by those who see what they believe. Objectivity has become a metallic object that must be left behind before the journalist passes through the newspaper threshold. The biases have stopped beeping altogether. Journalists have realized, forget the risk of losing government ad revenue or patronage for their organizations. They have realized that if they have to escape prison, they must please their political masters, be there in Delhi or in Bengal. In light of what Dr. Ambedkar said a century ago, the topic of the debate needs to be tweaked a little. It is not that journalism today is more intent on pleasing rather than presenting. It is that journalism has always been intent on pleasing rather than presenting. Journalism has always been the first defense of the crooked, of the propagandists, of those carrying an agenda. Ironically, as the quality of journalism plummets, the citizens have become more aware of the devious games being played at their expense. Social media has brought about democratization of voices that are heard. The journalists and those who control them detest this. Of course they do. But there is little they can do except to pass more and more draconian laws to curb freedom of speech. I can go on, but I realize that my interjection would not be complete without providing examples of how journalists, either viscerally or through political pressure, have stopped asking questions of those who most need to answer for in a democracy. examples that illustrate how journalists are more intent on pleasing than presenting the truth. I begin with Modi. Just 2 examples out of hundreds would suffice. The annual budget is going to be presented in a couple of weeks' time. But did you know that 21% of the 45 lakh crore odd sum will be allocated for propping up 1,830 public sector units, out of which 400 are non-functional? Except Air India, there has been zero privatization. And as for disinvestment, the PSUs that are sold are bought by other PSUs. PFC, LIC, NTPC buying REC, Coal India, TDHC and NEEPCO. Nationalized banks are rife with corruption. Bad loans worth 14 lakh crores have been written off in the last 10 years, out of which only 2 lakh crores have been recovered. Meanwhile, 3 lakh crores have been infused in these very nationalized banks. And as if that was not enough, 3 lakh crores have also been infused into the loss-making BSNL. Why am I quoting all these figures of loss-making government businesses? Because it was in 2013 that PM Narendra Modi said that the government has no business to be in business. He repeated it in 2017, and then in 2019, and then in 2022, almost as a ritual. Every time he increased the business of the government in business. Now I ask you, in the last 10 years, has there been a single journalist who has dared to question Narendra Modi on this criminal hypocrisy? No. Let me take another example. In July last year, Modi accused the NCP and Ajit Pawar of being corrupt and perpetrating massive scams. The very next day, Ajit Pawar and other corrupt NCP leaders were inducted into the Maharashtra government run by the BJP. Did any journalist dare to ask Modi why? No. Has any journalist ever asked PM Modi why did the BJP demand arrest of the congressman Anand Singh accused of 15 forest crime charges, but then made him the forest minister when he joined the BJP? Why did the BJP demand an ED raid on YS Chaudhary, accusing him of massive financial bungling and fraud of 5,700 crores, but then reneged on its demand when Chaudhary joined the BJP? Who in the BJP changed the Vijay Mallya lookout notice from detained to inform, allowing him to flee? Why did the BJP demand arrest of B. Monserrat for child rape and burning down a police station, but then took back its demand when he joined the BJP? Why did the BJP demand an FIR against Kripa Shankar Singh for launching a book that claimed 2611 was an RSS conspiracy, but then went back on its demand when he joined the BJP? But if you think Modi is the only hypocrite in town and journalists are only concerned about pleasing him and no one else, you could not be more mistaken. Case in point are the next 2 examples. Agriculture contributes only 12% to our GDP, and yet 44% of our 515 million strong labor force is involved in it. In the West, it is 2%. Production to purchase the entire chain is archaic, almost medieval. The entire sector was crying out for farm reforms, but when Modi implemented them, Rahul Gandhi and Congress poured onto the streets opposing them tooth and nail. Ironical, because the 3 farm laws were almost verbatim promised by the Congress in its 2019 manifesto. Verbatim. Congress promised them. But because Modi implemented them, those very farm laws suddenly became black laws. But did any journalist dare to ask Rahul Gandhi why he and his party took a shameless U-turn and held the entire country to ransom for a year? Let me give you another example. 9 years ago, the High Court convicted the BJP for violating the FCRA Act and accepting illegal donations. It was a conviction that carried prison sentences, not just a rap on the knuckles. What did the BJP do? In broad daylight, on the floor of Parliament, 30 more seconds, Dr. Sarkar. Maybe a minute more because I need to bribe you. On the floor of the Parliament, the BJP amended the FCRA Act, going back all the way to the emergency to make the violations ineffective. The High Court was rendered toothless. Now, any opposition party would have latched on to this blatant misuse of power. It would have come onto the streets, perhaps even brought the government down. This was a godsend. But the Congress did no such thing. In fact, the Congress supported the BJP in amending the FCRA Act. You know why? Because the High Court had also convicted the Congress for violating the FCRA Act. Did any journalist ask Rahul Gandhi why this thing happened? No. They only parrot what Rahul squeaks. And finally, I need to, Dr. Sarkar, because I really need to bribe you. This is the end thrust. Please allow me just a minute.
Yeah, but since the amount is undecided, just wrap up quickly. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, I have dealt with the so-called Godi media and the PD media. I guess the troika would not be complete if I do not mention Didi media. For years now, and I'm going to make sure that Telegraph never sponsors the CDC again. For years now, when it comes to
Now,
unpleasant...
you really need to wind up now. Yeah.
For years now, when it comes to unpleasant news regarding the state government, the media here has perfected the art of either staying silent or reporting it as news in brief on the 20th page, bottom left, font size 10. Perhaps they have learned their lesson, including the Telegraph, from the hounding and persecution of slapping the multiple cases on Avik Sarkar before he was forced to step down.
Anand, you really need to wrap up because I've got a job to go back to tomorrow. Yeah. Thank you very much. There isn't a job for me in Delhi. You'll get a chance again. Thank you.
Will you give me 30 seconds? Vox populi. Vox populi. Okay? So, as brilliant professors are slapped around and arrested for forwarding harmless cartoons and acquitted after 11 years, as journalists like Debamalya Bagchi are picked up in the middle of the night and thrown in jail, as 20,000 panchayat seats go uncontested because of murder, arson and loot, as ballot boxes are stuffed by Trinamool workers right under the gaze of the camera, as the High Court laments that FIRs were not registered in 60% of the cases of post-poll violence, as blood-curdling affidavits are submitted by half-dead women, as judges recuse themselves because of threats, as 40 crores of cash is recovered from the home of TMC conduits, as President COVID is compared to COVID, the Telegraph happily consigns itself to organizing debates, asking if journalists are more intent on pleasing than presenting. You say you speak truth to power, but it seems for you only Modi is in power, Didi is not. Finally, for my great friend Thakurta, for my great friend, the issue now is no longer of journalists pleasing Indians. It has transcended our borders. So now journalists please foreign powers as well. So as China wrecks the world economy, kills millions through a virus that it helped deliberately spread, as China interns 1 million Muslims in concentration camps and demolishes 1,700 mosques, there is stunned silence in the editorial rooms of Hindu and the News Click. Ask why. This is where journalism is right now. I'm so sorry I've taken so much more time than I should have. Thank you.
Anand, you indeed have. Well, thank you. Okay, we will. We'll come back to it.
Can I sit on that side?
No, Anand, have a sip of water and relax. Yeah. Anand needs us. Yeah. You see, the reason I wanted to stop you in the middle of the list is I was getting more and more anxious that what on earth would Priyanka speak about?